Alright, so the other day, I recorded like 2 hours of footage of me reviewing Keyblade designs because I've been on a Kingdom Hearts kick lately. But I didn't record any audio. Forgot to turn my mic on. But in doing so, I realized that I think I know how to talk about Keyblade design and how Keyblades have evolved over the series with only two, technically 5 Keyblades. Because you see, there are two things that are pretty reoccurring within Kingdom Hearts. And that's Hercules and the Ultimate Weapon. And looking at these two means I can kind of look at the two halves, the two ends of the spectrum. You know, because the Hercules Keyblades tend to be a little more on the simple side, while Ultima Weapon has always been the ornate, fanciful Keyblade. So, let's take a look. I'm going to run through all the Hercules Keyblades first, in game order, and then I'll run through each version of the Ultima Weapon, save for Dream Drops, because I don't have a good comparison point for Dream Drop distance with how I have this set up. And what we're looking at first is Kingdom Hearts 1. So what Kingdom Hearts 1 does is that it focuses a lot on the Keyblade being functional, on it looking like a key. You have clearly defined teeth up at the top. You have a solid shaft. And then Keyblades always have kinda ridiculous guards. We'll get to that in a second, and we'll talk about the guards a lot throughout this. And then you have the medallion at the end. The wiki calls it a token. I'm going to call them charms for this video, because I'm a millennial and keychain charms were the accessory. So, with the Olympia, what we're looking at here is something that is very much a key first. Now, for a Kingdom Hearts 1 Keyblade, it is a little more on the ridiculous end. You know, the teeth aren't really teeth, that's just like a cloud that's flat at the top. Hercules fucking signed the thing. And the guard being like two clouds in the shape of like a bicep flex is okay. But I think it works. This is definitely a Kingdom Hearts 1 Keyblade. There's this focus on like having the recognizable key shape. There is this idea that the keyhole for that world is probably a lock this thing would fit into, you know? And then we go into Kingdom Hearts 2, and in some ways this is an evolution of that. You know, we have the same charm, we have the same 3-pillar design for the handle and guard. Now, I don't necessarily like Keyblades that, have, like, that huge gap in the center for, like, functionality reasons. But we're gonna not focus on, like, how these things would work as functional weapons in this video. There are far more dedicated channels than I for that. And at the end of the day, these are magic clubs that are as sharp as the plot demands them to be. But we do notice that it's starting to drift away from the key-like design. We still have the key shape. We still have noticeable teeth with that sun motif at the top. But it's been pushed forward. Like on this one, the teeth are very much still like, sure, they jut forward a little bit from the end of the key, but in 2 it is much more prominent. It's something where if someone unfamiliar with Kingdom Hearts were to look at these, with the Olympia, you could feasibly see this and go, alright, I can reasonably bash people with one end, and the other end can work as a hammer. But the way this one's designed... I know I wasn't going to talk about functionality, but hear me out. With this one, instead it's almost like it's not designed to be a key, but more like a weird, ornate axe. Now, going into Birth by Sleep, and I'm sorry the Birth by Sleep images are so small, that's just a side effect of the wiki. Short of, manually resizing these, downloading and resizing them, It's me, since when was I known for my production value? But Birth by Sleep takes a weird side grade with this. We still have some shared motifs here with the medallion and the 3 pillars, but the guard no longer has that sweeping shape, or at least it's minimized here. It's a lot smaller. Or I could just do that. That works too. And now there is a notable difference between the shaft and the head. You got that... with Kingdom Hearts 1, it was one solid piece. And in Kingdom Hearts 2, you kinda got that with the roof, but it made it feel like it's a design choice. This is... yes, it is very ornate, but there's a clear thorough line of the pillar into the roof into the sun. Now we have the pillar with just a trophy on top. And Birth by Sleep kinda makes the start for a style of Keyblade that I really don't like. And it's one where the teeth kinda jut out diagonally instead of off to the side. And this one isn't as egregious as some of the others in Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop, but it is something that is noticeable how the teeth now go pretty far out away from the head and the shaft. And while looking at this, you're sort of getting the feel that this is something that was made to be a fancy magic weapon first and a key second, at least from my amateur analysis. And then there's Hero's Origin. So listen. Olympia. It is ridiculous. It is unsubtle. It is very in-your-face about what movie it's from. There are some Keyblades where they struggle to illustrate what movie they're from, even in Kingdom Hearts 1. Especially in Kingdom Hearts 1, like Jungle King. Hero's Origin is not that. It is so painfully a Hercules Keyblade. Crest and Mark, both of them, it's clearly a Greek design. It's clearly a Hercules Keyblade, but not in the way Olympia is, But then Hero's Origin just goes so fucking far in the other direction that this isn't even a key anymore. This was the artist being told to fuck around, and just one of them got accepted. And you know what? I kinda love anything where, like, they just tell the art team, hey, fuck around, do what you want, we'll make something work. But, like, the jump from this to this is mind-boggling. And I know I'm skipping a couple games. There is a thorough line with... There's kind of a thorough line with Dream Drop going into this. But... man! And, like, the top of it just being Zeus. Kingdom Hearts 3 Keyblades are very infamous for not being keys as more references. Like, one of the, like, it says a lot that one of the less egregious Keyblades in that regard is Crystal Snow. And probably the most, like, I don't think anyone are Kingdom Hearts 1E. I think, like, the most Kingdom Hearts 2E in terms of design would be the one from Tangled, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. But most of them are like this. And it's why I have trouble taking Keyblade designs from 3 all that seriously, because, come on. This is one of the most unserious Keyblade designs in the franchise. And I love it, but it's not what I look for in Keyblades. Now, like I said, these are example of Keyblades that are a little more on the simplistic end for Kingdom Hearts. You know, origin, like, you know, in terms of, like, actual construction, sure, Olympia is still, like, compared to other Kingdom Hearts 1 Keyblades, Olympia is still one of the more ridiculous ones. But these are still, like, not... They tend to be very... They tend to be very clean compared to other Keyblade designs. So let's look at the Ultimate Weapon. Now, the Ultimate Weapon has always been very fanciful, very ornate. That's in its nature. And Kingdom Hearts 1, it's probably the most ornate weapon in the game. And I struggle to call it a Keyblade within the context of Kingdom Hearts 1 specifically. And that's because of... And that's because of the center here. That is a tang. So, for those of you not familiar with sword construction or blacksmithing or whatever, the tang is effectively a sword's core. This is kinda, it's the thing you put the handle onto. However, as you can see, the handle isn't attached to that. The handle is further down, with a heart-shaped hilt acting as the, connector piece between the tang and the handle. What I think happened here, because, you know, in most games, the Ultimate Weapon... Okay, the Ultimate Weapon is a synthesized weapon in all of the games with a synthesis system. And what I think happened here is the Mughals didn't really understand what they were being told to make. So they took a sword blank, fashioned it into something similar to the Dream Sword, and then just added these orichalcum decorations on it until it gained a key-like shape. And for being a first pass at an artificial Keyblade by the Mughals, I actually say this is pretty good, all things considered. I kinda wish I knew what was up with the charm. Like, I can see the half-heart motif, but I don't really know what that's all about. The color gradient for the orichalcum is really good, but this is clearly like a sword they had lying around that they never finished, that they slapped the synth materials onto, you know? And then their second pass is in Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, this is also a very ridiculous weapon. The shape language doesn't make it immediately clear that it's a key. The top of it has a 2 and a crown stylized in the same way as the logo. And, like, also another crown for the teeth. It has the random pointy bits that Kingdom Hearts is kind of infamous for. It has the heart shapes, as I mentioned. The webbing is now double-sided, but it's a very iconic form of the Ultima weapon because this is clearly when the Moogles started to get what a Keyblade is supposed to be. I still hesitate to say that it's fully key-shaped, but it's clear that that's where it's going. And the Moogles are kind of starting to understand that. And then there's the Birth by Sleep Ultima weapon, and in some ways this might be the most unsubtle version so far in how the Wayfinder is used. And this one isn't obtained as part of what the Moogles do. I don't remember exactly how it's obtained in Birth by Sleep, but it is its own thing. And to that extent, I think it actually does a pretty good job for that. Now, it does introduce an element I don't really like for Keyblade design in the newer games, where the teeth aren't teeth anymore. They're just this, like, random circular thing. And, like, that's not really what's going on. You know, that's not quite how Keyblades are supposed to work. But for what it is, I think that it, despite still having the weird webbing, I think this is something closer to what a natural Ultima weapon is supposed to be. But by making it feel like a more purposeful design, they bring it away from the key shape, which is interesting. And then there's Threes. Surprisingly, this is not the most, like, over-designed thing in the game. There are weapons that are worse. I can happily do a follow-up video analyzing, like, the difference between how any given property is, like, represented, because boy howdy, if you want to talk the difference in designs, I'll show you the 2 Pirates of the Caribbean Keyblades. But there is a lot of cool things going on here that makes it feel far more reserved and more purposeful than that. And in a weird way, the Kingdom Hearts 3 version of the Ultima weapon showcases a highlight in 3's Keyblade designs when the art team does pull back a little and focus on the key shape. So, unlike every other Ultima weapon, this one does have clearly defined teeth as part of its design. And you can tell that that's what's going on. I don't know what's up with the fucking pointy bit at the front, but that's not really the Ultima weapon's fault. Keyblades having a weird pointy bit at the front has kind of always been a thing. And the triple shaft design being in the same style as the logo is actually it looks a lot better here than it did on 2's. With 2's, there was so much going on that you couldn't initially tell that's what was happening, and instead it just had this weird rounded end. But 3 pulls back, and you can clearly see the shape. The webbing is also pulled back, though not to the same degree as Birth by Sleep's, and because of that, you now have this more I know I keep saying that, but it feels more deliberate, more purposeful in how the webbing ties into things. And something that the Moogles have definitely figured out ever since 1 is how to integrate the actual handle of the thing. Now, I think the connection point between the hilt and the guard looks kind of flimsy. I don't really like Keyblades that have random floating elements, but also the charm is back. It's not as over-designed anymore. And again, Kingdom Hearts and its random pointy bits. But this is also one of the less intrusive guards for a Keyblade, which is nice. And it's why, like, it's weird how these 2 weapon lines contrast each other, with the Olympia being a very good showcase of Kingdom Hearts 1 Keyblade design, while the Ultima weapon is where the overcomplication started, versus the hero's origin is one of the most ridiculous fucking things in the franchise. But 3's Ultima weapon feels like the natural evolution of the idea of a key that is a sword. You know? Anyway, that's just something I wanted to go over. If people are interested, I could talk a little more on, like, Keyblade design and my thoughts for it. But other than that, that was just a quick one I wanted out. See ya.